I was ashamed of where I came from, until one moment made me see it differently. I used to lie about where I came from. Not big lies, nothing dramatic, just small edits, softened details, strategic omissions, the kind that slip into conversations, unnoticed. The kind that make people nod instead of pause. The kind that protect you from that look. You know the one. That slight shift in their eyes. That invisible line that suddenly appears between you and them. I learned early how to avoid it. If someone asked where I grew up, I wouldn't say the name of my neighborhood. I'd name the nearest well-known area instead. If they asked what my parents did, I'd keep it vague. They worked hard, I'd say, which was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth felt heavy, and I carried enough already. I grew up in a place most people only heard about when something bad happened, a place that made headlines for the wrong reasons. Sirens at night were normal. Power outages were expected. You learned how to walk fast, keep your head down, and read people before they even spoke. But that wasn't all it was. There were also the smells of food cooking in the evenings, drifting through open windows, music playing from somewhere down the block, kids laughing, chasing each other in the street like nothing in the world could touch them. Women sitting outside sharing stories that sounded like laughter stitched together with survival. That was home. But I didn't call it that. Not out loud, because somewhere along the way, I learned that people didn't hear those parts when you told them where you were from. They only heard what they already believed, and I didn't want to be reduced to that. So I edited myself. I became skilled at it. By the time I got into college, it was second nature. I remember my first day like it was yesterday. I stood there, looking around, trying to act like I belonged. Everyone seemed so polished, effortless, like they had always been in spaces like this. I felt like I had snuck in through the back door. Like any moment, someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, "We made a mistake." So I worked twice as hard to blend in. I studied how people talked, what they wore, what they laughed at. I paid attention to the little things, the unspoken rules, and I adapted. I straightened my hair more often. I softened my accent. I changed the way I dressed. I practiced smiling at the right moments, speaking at the right times, staying quiet when I wasn't sure. I became acceptable. At least, that's what I thought. But something strange happens when you spend too long trying to fit into a space that doesn't quite feel like yours. You start to disappear, not all at once. Not in a way anyone else can see, but piece by piece, you laugh a little less loudly. You stop telling certain stories. You avoid certain topics. You shrink parts of yourself until they're small enough to hide. And eventually, you forget what it feels like to take up space without thinking about it. I didn't notice it happening at first, but I felt it in the quiet moments. Late at night, when I was alone, there was this emptiness. Like I had left something behind, but I couldn't quite remember what. Still, I kept going, because blending in felt safer than standing out. Until that one moment. The moment I didn't see coming. It was during my second year. I had a class I almost didn't take. A community storytelling course. I only signed up because I needed the credits. I didn't know it would change everything. The professor was different from the start. She didn't lecture the way others did. She asked questions, real questions, the kind that made you uncomfortable because they didn't have easy answers. One day, she gave us an assignment. "Tell a story about where you come from," she said. Simple enough, right? That's what everyone else seemed to think. People started sharing ideas right away, talking about their hometowns, their families, their traditions. I sat there quiet because I didn't know which version of my story to tell. The edited one or the truth. I went back to my dorm that day and stared at my laptop for hours, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for me to decide who I was. I started writing, then deleting, writing again, deleting again. Every version felt wrong, too much truth felt dangerous, too little felt empty. I was stuck between two versions of myself, and neither felt complete. The night before the assignment was due, I was exhausted. Mentally, emotionally, everything. And something in me just broke. Not in a dramatic way. No tears, no big moment. Just a quiet decision. I was tired of hiding, so I wrote the truth, not the polished version, not the safe version, the real one. Wrote about the nights when sirens wouldn't stop. I wrote about my mother working double shifts and still coming home with enough love to fill the room. I wrote about the way people looked at me when they found out where I was from. Wrote about the shame and the anger and the confusion of loving a place you were taught to be embarrassed by. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't pretty, but it was honest. The next day, I walked into class with my heart pounding. My hands were cold. I kept telling myself I didn't have to share it out loud. I could just turn it in. That would be enough. But then the professor said something. "If you're willing," she said, "I encourage you to share your story. There's power in being heard." I looked around. People were volunteering. One by one, they stood up and shared their stories. Some were funny. Some were emotional. All of them were safe. And then, without fully thinking about it, I raised my hand. Even now, I don't know why. I did it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I wanted to feel something real. Maybe a part of me was ready. I stood up, walked to the front, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. The room felt too quiet, too still. I could feel every eye on me, and all I could think was, what if they see me differently after this? What if this changes everything? But then another thought came. What if this is the first time they actually see me? So I started reading. My voice was shaky at first. I stumbled over a few words. I almost stopped, but I didn't. I kept going, sentence by sentence, word by word, and something unexpected happened. The room changed, not in a big, dramatic way, but in a quiet, almost invisible shift. People leaned in. They listened, really listened. No one interrupted. No one looked away. There was no judgment in their eyes, just attention and something else, something I hadn't expected. Respect. By the time I finished, my hands were trembling. I looked up, unsure of what I would see, and for a second there was silence. Then someone started clapping, and then another, and then the whole room. But it wasn't the applause that stayed with me. It was what happened after. A girl I barely knew came up to me. She didn't say much, just, "Thank you for sharing that." But the way she said it felt different. Real. Then another person came up, and another, each one saying something similar. Not pity, not judgment, just appreciation, connection. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself, or hide, or edit my story. I just existed, fully. That moment didn't fix everything overnight. I didn't suddenly become fearless. I didn't stop feeling insecure. But something shifted, deep inside. A small crack in the wall I had built around myself, and through that crack, something new started to grow. Acceptance, not from others, from myself. I started paying attention to the way I spoke about where I came from, the little edits, the subtle changes, and slowly, I began to stop. When people asked, I told them the real name of my neighborhood. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like I was exposing something I had spent years hiding, but each time I said it got a little easier, a little lighter. I started sharing more of my story, not all at once, not with everyone, but enough. Enough to feel honest. And something surprising happened. The more I owned my story, the less power shame had over me. Because shame thrives in silence, in hiding, in the spaces where truth is buried. But when you bring it into the light, it changes. It loses its grip. I began to see my past differently, not as something to escape, but as something that shaped me, strengthened me, taught me things no classroom ever could. Resilience, awareness, empathy. I realized that the things I was once ashamed of were actually the things that made me, me, and for the first time, that felt like enough. There was one moment that really solidified it for me. It was a few months after that class. I had an internship interview, a big one, the kind that could open doors. I was nervous, of course, but this time, it felt different. I wasn't trying to become someone else, I was just showing up as myself. The interviewer asked the usual questions. My experience, my goals, my strengths, and then came the question I used to dread. Tell me about where you come from. For a split second, the old instinct kicked in. Edit, simplify, protect. But then I remembered that moment in class, the way it felt to be seen, really seen, and I made a choice. I grew up in a neighborhood that most people misunderstand, I said, and then I told the truth. Not in a way that focused on struggle alone, but in a way that showed growth. Perspective, depth, I talked about what I learned, how it shaped the way I see the world, how it made me adaptable, resilient, aware. When I finished, there was a pause, and then the interviewer smiled. That's a powerful story, they said. And in that moment, I realized something. My story wasn't something to hide, it was something to carry with pride. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real, and real connects, real resonates, real stays. I didn't get the internship right away, but that wasn't the point, because I walked out of that room feeling something I hadn't felt before. Proud, not of what I had achieved, but of who I was and where I came from. It's funny how one moment can change the way you see everything. Not because it erases the past, but because it reframes it, gives it new meaning, new weight. If you had asked me years ago, I would have told you I couldn't wait to leave my past behind, to become someone new. Someone better. But now, I understand something different. You don't become better by erasing where you come from. You become better by understanding it, by owning it, by letting it teach you instead of define you. I still have moments where that old feeling creeps in, that hesitation, that urge to edit. But now I recognize it, and I choose differently, because I know the truth. My story is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be honored. Every part of it. The hard moments, the messy parts, the things that don't fit neatly into a box, all of it, because it all led me here, and here is enough. So if you've ever felt that way, if you've ever tried to hide parts of yourself to fit into spaces that weren't built with you in mind, I want you to know this. You don't have to shrink to belong. You don't have to edit your story to make it acceptable. You don't have to carry shame that was never yours to begin with. Your story matters, all of it. And the moment you start owning it, not just the easy parts, but the real parts, that's the moment things begin to change, not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. And that changes everything. Because the truth is, the place you come from is not your limitation. It's your foundation. And once you see it that way, you realize something powerful. You were never less. You were just seeing yourself through the wrong lens. And once that lens changes, you can't unsee it. You stand differently. Speak differently. Move through the world with a quiet kind of confidence. Not loud, not forced, just a real. And real is more than enough. Always has been. Always will be. Something changes when you stop hiding. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. No music playing in the background like a movie scene. No instant transformation where suddenly everything in your life becomes perfect. It's quieter than that, but it's deeper. It starts in small moments, Like the first time someone asks you, "Where are you from?" and you don't hesitate. No? Pause. No mental editing. No scanning their face to predict their reaction. You just answer. Honestly. And then you breathe, because nothing bad happens. No one recoils. No one pulls away. Sometimes they just nod. Sometimes they ask questions. Sometimes they even smile. And that used to confuse me, because for so long, I had built this idea in my head that my story would push people away. That if they really knew, they would see me differently. Less than. But that wasn't always true. In fact, most of the time, the opposite happened. People leaned in, not because my story was extraordinary, but because it was real, and real is rare. I started noticing something else too. The more honest I became, the more I could recognize others who were hiding. It's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The forced laugh, the carefully chosen words, the way someone avoids certain topics, the way they shrink just a little when the conversation gets too close to something real. I saw myself in them, and for the first time, I understood something I hadn't before. It wasn't just me. So many of us are walking around carrying stories we think are too heavy to share, too messy, too complicated, too much. So we edit, we filter, we present the version of ourselves that feels safest. But safety can become a cage if you stay there too long. I didn't realize how much I had limited myself until I started stepping out of it. It showed up in unexpected places, like friendships. Before, my connections with people felt surface level, not fake, but not deep either. We talked about classes, work, plans, safe topics, things that didn't require vulnerability. And for a while, that felt enough. But once I started being more open, something shifted. The conversations changed. They became richer, more honest, more human. I remember one night in particular, I was sitting with a small group of classmates. We weren't especially close, just people who happened to be in the same circle. We were talking about family. At first, it was light, funny stories, childhood memories. But then the conversation slowed. Someone hesitated before speaking, and then she shared something real, not polished, not pretty, just honest. And there it was again, that moment, that opening, the kind where you can either keep things on the surface or go deeper. Before, I would have stayed quiet, let the moment pass. But this time, I didn't. I shared something too. Not everything, but enough. Enough to be real. And suddenly, the whole energy of the group changed. Walls started coming down, one by one. People opened up, stories were shared. Not the kind you post online, the kind you usually keep to yourself. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Connection doesn't come from perfection, it comes from honesty, from the willingness to be seen as you are, not as who you think you need to be. That night stayed with me, because it showed me what was possible. Not just in friendships, but in life. Still, it wasn't always easy. There were moments when the old feelings came back, strong, unexpected. Like one afternoon during a group project. We were discussing ideas, and somehow the conversation shifted to neighborhoods. Someone mentioned a place similar to where I grew up, but the way they talked about it, it was familiar, dismissive, stereotypical. They weren't trying to be cruel, but their words carried assumptions, the kind I had spent years trying to avoid, and suddenly, I felt it again. That tightness in my chest, that voice in my head saying, "Don't say anything, just stay quiet." For a moment, I almost listened. Old habits don't disappear overnight. They linger. They wait for moments like this. But then I thought about how far I had come, about that class, about the people who had listened, about the way I felt when I stopped, hiding, and I made a different choice. I actually grew up in a place like that, I said. The words felt heavy as they left my mouth. The group went quiet. I could feel the shift, the attention, and then someone asked, "Really? What was it like?" There it was again. That moment, that choice, hide or speak. This time, I didn't hold back. "It wasn't what you think," I said. And then I explained, not defensively, not angrily, just honestly. I talked about the complexity, the reality beyond the stereotypes, the people, the culture, the strength. I didn't ignore the challenges, but I didn't let them define the whole story either. When I finished, the energy in the room was different. Not tense, not awkward, just thoughtful. One of them nodded slowly. "I never thought about it like that," he said. And that's when it hit me. Sometimes people don't see differently because no one has shown them a different perspective. Not because they're bad. Not because they're against you, but because they simply don't know. And when you speak, when you share, you give them a chance to understand. That moment wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about changing their minds completely. It was about opening a door. And sometimes, that's enough. I walked away from that conversation, feeling something new. Not just confidence, but clarity. About who I was, about what my story meant, and about the role I could play in shaping how it was understood. But growth isn't a straight line. There were still moments of doubt. Moments when I questioned myself, when I wondered if I was saying too much, sharing too much, being too visible. Because visibility can feel vulnerable. When you stop hiding, you also stop controlling how people see you. And that can be scary. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will respond the way you hope. There were times when people did react differently when I saw that look, that subtle shift, and it hurt. I won't pretend it didn't, because when you show your real self, rejection feels more personal. But here's what I started to realize. Those reactions said more about them than about me. About their perspective, their experiences, their limitations, not my worth, not my value. And slowly, that understanding gave me something I had never really had before. Freedom. Freedom to be myself without constantly measuring how it might be received. Freedom to speak without editing every word. Freedom to exist without apology. And with that freedom came something else. Responsibility. Because once you find your voice, once you understand the power of your story, you start to see how it can impact others. I began to notice how people responded when I shared openly, not just in big moments, but in small ones too, like a casual conversation after class, or a quiet talk with someone who seemed like they were struggling. Sometimes just being honest gave others permission to do the same, and those moments mattered more than I expected. There was one in particular I'll never forget. A girl approached me after a presentation. We had barely spoken before. She looked nervous, hesitant. "I heard what you said earlier," she began. I nodded, waiting. She took a breath. "I feel the same way sometimes," she admitted. And just like that, I saw it. That same feeling I used to carry. That same weight. And in that moment, I understood something deeply. Your story isn't just yours. It becomes a bridge, a way for others to feel less alone, less misunderstood, less hidden. We talked for a while, not about anything extraordinary, just real things, honest things. And when we finished, she smiled, a genuine smile, the kind that feels like relief. "Thank you," she said, and I realized this is why it matters. Not for recognition, not for validation, but for connection, for understanding, for those quiet moments when someone feels seen because you chose not to hide. As time went on, I became more comfortable in my own skin. Not perfectly, not completely, but more than before. And that made a difference in ways I didn't expect. even in opportunities, in spaces where I once felt like I had to prove myself. Now, I showed up differently, not trying to fit a mold, but bringing my full self into the room. And that changed how I was perceived, not because I was suddenly better, but because I was more real, more grounded, more present. People can feel that, even if they can't explain it, and it builds something important. Trust, authenticity has a way of doing that. It creates a kind of presence that doesn't need to be forced. It just is. Looking back, I can see how much energy I used to spend trying to manage how I was seen, trying to avoid judgment, trying to fit into expectations that were never really mine. And now, that energy was going somewhere else, into growth, into connection, into becoming. But the journey wasn't over, not even close. Because understanding where you come from is one thing, fully embracing it, living it without hesitation, that takes time. It's a process, one that unfolds slowly, moment by moment, choice by choice. And sometimes it takes being tested, pushed into situations where you have to decide again, who are you? What do you stand for? What parts of yourself are you willing to show? Even when it's uncomfortable? I didn't know it yet, but another moment was coming, one that would challenge everything I thought I had learned, one that would force me to go even deeper. Not just in how I saw my past, but in how I carried it and how I used it. Because growth doesn't stop at awareness. It continues in action, in the choices you make when it would be easier to go back to who you used to be. And I was about to find out just how much I had changed, or if I had changed at all. Growth has a way of testing you when you least expect it. Not when you feel ready, not when everything is calm and under control, but right in the middle of your life. When you think you've already figured things out, that's when it shows up and asks you a simple question that doesn't feel simple at all. Do you really believe what you say you believe? I didn't realize I was about to be tested, not at first. It started with an email, short, straight to the point, an invitation to speak. At first I thought it was a mistake. I read it twice, then a third time. They were asking me to share my story, not in a classroom, not in a small group, but on a stage, at a university event focused on identity, background, and overcoming barriers. My first reaction wasn't excitement, it was fear, immediate, heavy, loud, because speaking in class is one thing. Standing in front of a room full of strangers, that's something else. There's no hiding there, no blending in, no staying small. It's just you, fully visible, fully exposed. And every insecurity I thought I had worked through came rushing back. Who do you think you are? What if you say the wrong thing? What if they don't relate? What if they judge you? What if you're not enough? That voice, the one I thought had gotten quieter, was suddenly loud again. And for a moment, I considered saying no. It would have been easy. Just a polite email. Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm unable to participate at this time. Safe. Simple. Comfortable. But something inside me didn't sit right with that. Because I knew the truth. I wasn't unable. I was afraid, and I had to ask myself something I had been avoiding. Had I really grown? Or had I just gotten comfortable? In smaller spaces? It's easy to be confident when the risk feels manageable, when the audience is small, when the environment feels safe. But growth doesn't live there. It lives in the stretch. In the moments that make your heart race, in the decisions that force you to step into something bigger than what you're used to. I stared at that email for a long time. Then I closed my laptop, tried to distract myself, but it stayed in my mind, quiet, persistent, waiting. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept circling back to one thing, that moment in class, the first time I told the truth, the way it felt, terrifying, and freeing at the same time. And then I thought about everything that had happened since. The conversations, the connections, The way my story had started to mean something beyond just me. And slowly, a different question began to form. What if this isn't about you? What if this is about the people who need to hear it? That thought changed something. Just enough. Not enough to remove the fear, but enough to move through it. The next morning, I opened my laptop again. Read the email one more time, and before I could overthink it, I replied, "Yes, I'd be honored to speak." The moment I sent it, my stomach dropped. That instant realization, there's no going back now. And just like that, it became real. The days leading up to the event were intense. I tried to prepare, tried to write, tried to organize my thoughts into something structured, something clear, something that made sense. But every time I sat down, I felt stuck. Because this wasn't just a story anymore. It felt like a responsibility. What do you say when people are expecting something meaningful? How? Do you tell your truth in a way that actually reaches them? I wrote drafts, deleted them, started over, again and again. Nothing felt right. Everything sounded either too rehearsed, or too raw, too distant, or too exposed. I was caught in that same space I had been before, between hiding and revealing, between safety and honesty. The night before the event, I was exhausted, not just physically, mentally, emotionally. I sat on my bed, staring at my notes, feeling that familiar pressure building again. And then something clicked, a quiet realization, the same one I had before. You don't need to perform. You just need to be real. That was it. Not perfect, not polished, just honest. So, I stopped trying to make it sound impressive. Stopped trying to control how it would be received, and I wrote from that place. From truth, from experience, from everything I had been carrying for so long. When I finished, it wasn't perfect, but it felt right, and for the first time since I said yes, I felt ready. The day of the event came quickly, too quickly. I remember standing backstage, listening to the muffled sound of the audience. Voices blending together, chairs moving, that low hum of anticipation. My heart was racing, my hands were cold. Again, just like that first time in class. Funny how some feelings don't change. Even when you do. Someone called my name, it was time. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright. For a second, I couldn't see anything, just shapes, shadows, a blur of faces, and then slowly, my vision adjusted. Rows of people, all looking at me, waiting. That voice tried to come back again, the doubt, the fear. But this time, it didn't take over. Because I had something stronger, clarity. I knew why I was there, and that mattered more than how I felt. So I began. At first, my voice was steady, careful, measured. But as I continued, something shifted, the same way it had before. I stopped thinking about how I sounded, stopped worrying about every word, and I just spoke about my childhood, about the things I used to hide, about the shame, the silence, the way I edited myself to fit. Into spaces that never asked me to shrink, but made me feel like I had to. I talked about that class, that moment, the first time I told the truth, and how it changed everything. I could feel the room, the energy, the stillness. People were listening, not just hearing, but feeling it. And then, without planning it, I went deeper. I shared things I hadn't shared before, memories I used to keep to myself, moments that shaped me in ways I didn't fully understand until now. And it was uncomfortable, vulnerable, real. But I didn't stop because I knew. This is where the truth lives, not in the surface, but in the depth. By the time I reached the end, my voice softened, not from fear, but from something else. Emotion, honesty, completion, and then silence. That same silence. The kind that feels heavy, but not in a bad way, in a meaningful way. And then it happened. Applause. Loud. Strong. Real. But just like before, that wasn't what stayed with me. It was what came after. People came up to me one by one. Different backgrounds, different stories, but similar feelings. I saw myself in what you said. I've never heard someone explain it like that. Thank you for being honest. And then, one moment, the moment that changed everything again. A young girl approached me. She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure if she should be there. Recognized that feeling immediately. She stood in front of me for a second before speaking. I've always been embarrassed to tell people where I'm from, she said quietly, her voice almost breaking. And just like that, I was looking at a younger version of myself. Same hesitation, same weight, same struggle. I didn't interrupt, I just listened. After hearing you, she continued, I don't feel as alone. That was it. Simple, but powerful. And in that moment, everything became clear. This is why it matters. Not the stage, not the applause, not the recognition. This, that connection, that understanding, that shift in someone else's perspective. Because when you share your truth, you give others permission to do the same. You create space for honesty, for acceptance, for growth. I left that event feeling different, not because I had overcome fear. Fear was still there, it always is, but because I had moved through it with purpose, with clarity, with intention. And something inside me settled in a way it never had before. A deeper kind of acceptance, not just of where I came from, but of who I was becoming. Because this journey, it's not just about letting go of shame. It's about transforming it, turning it into something meaningful. Something that doesn't just stay inside you, but reaches beyond you, impacts others, creates change. Even in small ways, especially in small ways. Looking back, I can see the difference now. Between who I was and who I am becoming. Not perfect, not fearless, but real, grounded, whole. And the most powerful part, I'm no longer trying to distance myself from my story. I'm carrying it, fully, proudly, and using it. Because the same story I once tried to hide is now the reason I can stand in rooms I never thought I belonged in, speak in ways I never thought I could, connect with people I never thought I would reach. And that changes everything. But the journey isn't over, because growth doesn't end with one moment or one realization. It continues, it evolves, it deepens. And there was still one more lesson waiting for me, one I didn't see coming, one that would challenge me in a different way, not in how I saw myself, but in how I lived that truth, every single day, even when no one was watching, even when it wasn't easy, because that's where it really matters. There's a difference between understanding something and living it. For a long time, I thought they were the same. If you realize something, if you feel it deeply, then it must automatically change how you move through life, right? That's what I believed, until I learned the truth. Understanding is a moment. Living it is a choice you have to make over and over again. Every single day, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one is watching, even when it would be easier to go back to who you used to be. After that event, after the stage, the conversations, the connections, I felt strong, grounded, like I had finally stepped into something real. But life doesn't pause just because you've had a breakthrough. It keeps moving, and eventually it puts you in situations that ask you, quietly but firmly, are you really going to live this now? That moment came for me in a way I didn't expect. Not on a stage, not in a classroom, but in a room that felt familiar in a different way, a professional space. My first full-time job after college. I remember my first day walking into that office. Clean, organized, polished, very different from where I came from, but this time, I wasn't intimidated in the same way. At least, not at first. I had grown. I had found my voice. I had stood on a stage and told my truth. So I thought, this will be different. And in some ways, it was, but in other ways, it felt like stepping back into an old version of myself. Not because anything was said directly, not because anyone told me to change, but because of the subtle things, the tone of conversations, the topics people chose, the assumptions that floated just under the surface, the kind that aren't obvious enough to call out immediately, but strong enough to make you feel like you need to adjust. And just like that, I felt it again. That quiet pressure to fit in, to smooth out the edges, to present a version of myself that felt easier for others to accept. It wasn't as intense as before, but it was there, and this time it felt different. Because now I was aware of it. I could see it happening in real time. The small pauses before I spoke, the moments where I almost changed, a detail of my story, the instinct to stay quiet when something didn't sit right with me, and that awareness brought a new kind of tension because now I had a choice. Ignore it and slip back into old patterns, or face it, and live the truth I had worked so hard to understand. It sounds simple, but it wasn't. Because this wasn't a classroom. This wasn't a supportive space designed for growth. This was real life, with real consequences, work relationships, opportunities, reputation. And suddenly, the stakes felt higher. One afternoon, that tension came to the surface. We were in a meeting, a casual one. Nothing formal, just a group discussion. And somehow, the conversation shifted. Someone made a comment about certain neighborhoods, the kind of comment that sounds harmless at first, but carries weight underneath. Stereotypes, assumptions, the same ones I had heard before, the same ones I used to stay silent about. The room reacted lightly, a few nods, a small laugh. No one challenged it, and for a moment, everything slowed down, because I felt it again. That internal pull. Stay quiet. Don't make it awkward. It's not that serious. But then another voice came in, clearer, stronger. You've been here before, and you know what it feels like to stay silent. That feeling of shrinking, of letting something pass that doesn't align with who you are. And I realized something important in that moment. Speaking your truth once doesn't change your life. Choosing it consistently does. So I took a breath, and I spoke. Not loudly, not aggressively, just honestly. I actually grew up in a place like that, I said. The room went quiet. Again, that same silence. But this time, it felt different, heavier, more uncertain, because this wasn't a space where vulnerability was expected. This wasn't a story people came prepared to hear. But I didn't stop. It's more complex than it seems. I continued, and I explained, calmly, clearly. I talked about the reality behind the assumptions, the things people don't see, the experiences that don't make headlines. I didn't try to lecture. I didn't try to prove a point. I just shared perspective, my perspective. And when I finished, there was a pause. Longer this time, more noticeable, and then something shifted, not dramatically. No big reactions, no applause, just small things. A change in posture, a thoughtful expression, someone nodding slowly, another person saying, "I never thought about it like that." And that was enough, because this wasn't about changing the entire room. It was about not abandoning myself, not shrinking, not going back to silence just because it felt safer. After that meeting, I sat at my desk for a while, quiet, reflecting, and I felt something settle inside me, something steady, because I had done it. Not in the spotlight, not in a controlled environment, but in real life, in a moment that mattered. And that's when it really clicked. This is what growth looks like. Not perfect speeches, not big defining moments, but small, consistent choices. The kind that no one else may even notice. But you do. And those choices, they build something. Confidence, not the loud kind, not the kind that needs validation, but the quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing who you are and standing in it. Fully, without apology. From that point on, things didn't suddenly become easy. There were still moments of discomfort, still situations where I had to decide, speak or stay silent, show up or shrink back. But now I had a reference point, a foundation. I knew what it felt like to choose myself, and that made it easier to do it again and again and again. Over time, something else started to happen. The more I showed up as myself, the more I attracted spaces where I didn't feel like I had to hide. People who valued honesty, conversations that welcomed depth, opportunities that didn't require me to edit my story to fit. And that's something I never expected. I used to think I had to adapt to every space, change myself to belong. But now I see it differently. The right spaces don't ask you to shrink. They expand with you. They make room for your story, your voice, your truth. And that doesn't mean every space will be like that. They won't. But the difference now is I don't lose myself trying to fit into them. I stay grounded, clear, certain. And if a space doesn't align, I recognize it without internalizing it, without letting it define me, because I know who I am, and more importantly, I know where I come from, and I no longer see that as something to hide or fix or distance myself from. I see it as a source of strength, perspective, depth. Everything I used to be ashamed of now feels like something I carry with pride. Not because it was easy, but because it shaped me in ways nothing else could. If I could go back and talk to the version of me who used to lie about where she came from, I wouldn't judge her. I wouldn't tell her she was wrong. Because I understand now. She was trying to protect herself. Trying to navigate a world that didn't always feel welcoming. Trying to belong in spaces that weren't built with her in mind. And that's not weakness. That's survival. But I would tell her something else. Something she didn't know yet. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to carry that shame forever. You don't have to keep editing your story to make it easier for others to accept, because the moment you start owning it, fully, honestly, without apology, everything changes. Not overnight, not perfectly, but deeply, in a way that stays. And if you're listening to this right now, if any part of this feels familiar, if you've ever felt like you had to hide parts of yourself, soften your story, make it more acceptable. I want you to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with where you come from, even if the world has made you feel that way, even if people have misunderstood it, even if you've spent years trying to distance yourself from it. Your story is not something to escape, it's something to understand, to embrace, to carry forward, because it holds value, more than you realize. And the moment you start seeing it that way, the moment you stop looking at it through the lens of shame and start looking at it through the lens of truth, you'll feel it, that shift, that release, that quiet strength that comes from no longer hiding, from no longer pretending, from finally allowing yourself to be seen. Not the edited version, not the polished version, but the real one. And that version, that's the one people connect with. That's the one that creates impact. That's the one that inspires others to do the same. Because when one person stops hiding, it gives others permission to step forward too. And that's how things change. Not all, at once, but one story at a time, one voice at a time, one honest moment at a time. So wherever you come from, whatever your story looks like, own it. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. And that alone makes it powerful. More powerful than any version you could ever try to create. This isn't just about confidence or self-acceptance. It's about truth. And truth has a way of grounding you, of reminding you that you don't need to become